It's our regular OpsRamp Wednesday, normally on at 3 o'clock every week to talk about OpsRamp. But today I'm going to start out a lot slightly different and just talk a little bit about some of the bits I use to do these videos. A lot of people have been asking questions on what I'm using, so I've got my little over-the-shoulder view camera to tell you a little bit. I'm going to focus on a little gadget that I've got that makes life much easier when you're changing scenes. And what I can do is I can jump around between where I am at the moment to a dual screen with both cameras on. I can jump over to just myself talking. If I'd got an interview, I could go to an interview and have a second person, and we were set up yesterday for Amos at Tintree to do this. So I can jump around between the different people I want live in the feed for people to see that. But if I had to use a mouse and clicking, I'm going to introduce noise into the actual stream, and also it's going to be more difficult for me to do. So this thing's called a Stream Deck. So I'll show you the Stream Deck. So there you can see it, and it's lots of little screens behind physical buttons. So as you press those buttons, it changes the actual screen layout, and it also highlights the buttons so you can see what's happening. So what I'm going to do is bring it up on the screen up here so you can see how that's done. So if I go to configure Stream Deck, it should pop up on my screen. What I've got is like a pictorial view of the actual buttons on here. So I've moved it across so I can see what you're seeing as well. So back over so I can see me. So what we've got is a picture of each one of them, and I've got on there an analog clock, which I find very useful, so that when I'm in the middle of kicking off, I can actually see it to the second, the time, and ready to go. Also, I've got each one of the scenes that I commonly use, and what I'm going to do is just allocate a button to something different. But what I'm going to do first is create a scene. So I'll drag that out of the way over to the other side. You can still see it over here. And what I'm going to do in here is actually create a new scene. It's going to be a really basic one, and I'll just call it main cam. So it's going to be just the main camera. I'm going to show you. You won't have any audio while I just get the first piece of it set up, but let me just go and do that quickly. So hopefully you've got some audio now, and then what I'll do is I'll bring in a video component and actually use the side camera so you've got a full image from the side. Now hopefully you can see what I'm seeing. I'm just open it full size. So I've created this main cam view down at the bottom left there, which you can now see. And what I'm going to do is allocate that to one of these buttons. So if I bring the buttons over a bit closer so you can see them, and what I'm going to do is just go over to my OBS Studio and pick Scene. I can drop that onto one of the items on here to replace it, which is placed there. And then what I can do, I can call it main or main cam or whatever I want to do. And then below it, I can pick the particular scene I want it to have, and we can see that's changed there. But it's also, you should have seen it change on the actual Stream Deck as well. So now it says main there. So if I go back to dual where we were before, just to close the screen. So back to dual, and if I press that main again, that takes us to that new scene I created using that side cam, and it's quite easy now to jump between those two different views really simply, or back to my main view. Press the wrong button, my main view there. So really simple way of moving around between different scenes that you've got on OBS that's been streamed out to whoever's watching at the moment. I'm not sure if there's anybody out there, but if you are there, welcome on board to listen to this this session. So what I'm going to do is jump back and then talk about a little bit about OpsRamp, because it's normally what we talk about on a Wednesday, but I wanted to add that extra little piece about what Stream Deck is and how can you use Stream Deck. Once you've actually got one, you'll find you can actually do a lot more with it. I have it set up with particular applications to launch them on the screen as well. So things like during the day when I'm working, I've got a Sonos system. I can press the Sonos app on a button, brings it up, and I can choose which music I want to play, where I want to play it, change the volume and things. I also have it set up for my phone, because I've got a soft phone on my Mac as well that links to my desk phone, and I can bring that up. And also we use Teams regularly during the week, so I've got a Teams button and it brings it up on my left hand monitor, Teams there, so I can jump between different apps just by pressing a button on Stream Deck. So it's not just being used during streaming broadcasts at 3 o'clock for an hour each day. It's been used all day long, every day. I also use it to turn lights on and off. So above me here we've got the key light, and if I go back to my main screen and I shall jump onto dual cam again so you can see what I'm doing. What you can see here, I've got the key light actually as a light, a button. So if I press that, the key light goes off, press it goes on. And I've also got a second lighting section where I can go and I can actually make it brighter or dimmer as well, whichever I want to do through that as well. So really simple to control everything that you're doing with the Stream Deck. Just makes life a lot easier. So let's get back to where we were and what we're planning to do today. So one thing I want to talk about is how complicated environments can be, and also how you can then simplify the process of notifying or even automating the remedial activities within that environment. So start off with, what I'll do is I'll bring up my presentation view, and on here we've got our demonstration platform. So it's a small number of servers and some VMware environments that we've got in our data center. So if I go over to here, we can see different pieces of that. I can go into it to see the actual infrastructure. I can also jump to a topology view of it to see what it looks like. When it comes up initially, it's going to be quite small, and it's over this left hand side here. Going back to where I started, going to VMware topology view of vCenter. At this point, I've only got a depth of 3, so if I bring up to depth of 5, you'll see a lot more of the infrastructure there. So we can see the infrastructure across there. So that's made up of virtual machines that are running Windows, Linux, a variety of other operating systems. We've also got some switches, which are soft switches, so distributed soft switching across those the cluster of VMware environment. We've also got storage arrays, so there's 2 different storage array types in there. We've got a mixture of tin tree, which is an all-flash array, which gives us really high performance, but it's actually a standalone storage device that's connected to the VMware cluster. And we've also got some HCI platform product called SimpliVity. If you remember SimpliVity before it was bought by HPE, we've got a number of SimpliVity nodes as well, so they've got inbuilt storage. Outside of those, there are switches. So there are physical switches, 10 gig switching that connect the storage to the hosts within the VMware environment, and also we've got switching that connects the host to the outside world via a firewall as well. So we've got a number of components in there that could go wrong, from the actual application within the operating system, the virtual machine, the host, the software that actually manages the switching, physical switching, the storage. A number of pieces could go wrong. So one of the things we need to do is, one, be able to identify what's actually gone wrong, rather than just what's been affected by the error. So having an issue with one component can actually trigger maybe 10-fold, if not 100-fold errors. So we can actually see lots of different events saying that there's a problem coming from different pieces of that infrastructure if one, say, host had failed. Really what we want to see is only the particular item that's failed, and so we can focus on delivering a fix to that. If it was, say, an operating system and we've got specific services that have failed on there and we're getting an alert from that, we may want to automate some of that process as well. So we may want to run a script to restart a particular process, to maybe change some metrics, and then what we want to do is maybe escalate after that. So if that doesn't fix it, let's do the next stage. So it may be we automatically raise a ticket. We could raise that internally within OpsRamp, or we could actually integrate it with ServiceNow and raise a ticket within ServiceNow. Once we've raised that, then we might want to notify someone that there's an incident. And one of the key things about OpsRamp is getting to the right person with the right method at the right time. So first thing, it's got a skills-based routing capability. So understanding whether this particular resource is a network resource, a storage resource, whether it's a VMware or a compute resource, depending on our organization, we can actually configure it specifically to the groups of people that we've got to repair it. So it may be that all our first and second line engineers actually are generalists and do everything, and it's only when it gets to third line it goes to a specialist. But what we can do is we can map the actual notification process within OpsRamp to that layout of the individuals and how we operate. We can also then set specific schedules based on those groups. So it may be that certain people cover out of hours and there's a specific method we go to them, and also during the daytime we've got a group of people that are actually in the office or working from home, as we seem to be doing a lot these days, so we can notify them as well. The three main notification methods are email. As we've seen with lots of platforms, you can send an email and we can actually make it very insightful. So we can tell exactly what the problem is and where. We can actually tell it when it happened, what messages were received, and we can also link it to a particular knowledge base so that we can actually search that knowledge base and using the actual error message, pull any knowledge base articles that are appropriate to it and links to them. And we can put that all into the email out to the individual or group of individuals. If we do the next stage, so we may have mobile workforce and they're moving around, we may want to send an SMS. So we can send SMS messages again with similar pieces with the specific issue, the specific message, and also some kind of insight data that points us to the right place using the knowledge base. And we can build that knowledge base out over time, and we can extract information from other areas such as ServiceNow to get that knowledge base built. Then finally, it could be that we've actually got an out of hours cover that's actually someone who's just got a pager or a telephone with them, and they're normally sleeping at in the early hours when a failure happens. If you send someone an email at 2 in the morning, they're fast asleep, they're not going to see it. If you send them an SMS message, there's a good chance they're not going to hear it and not going to respond to it. So the final way to actually call people to action from a notification perspective is to use a telephone call. And what we can do with the telephone call is make a call to a specific number. If it's not answered, we can actually then escalate to other numbers. But what we can also do is read that information out that we want to provide over that call. So if we were, say, a managed service provider, we've got multiple customers, we could actually incorporate things like saying who the customer is, what the infrastructure has been affected by, and what the problem looks like it is, so that you can quite quickly go to it, maybe notify the customer of an outage and deal with the problem quickly. So this is a telephone call, so it rings and it converts the text in the actual notification setting into audio and plays that over the phone. So it captures particular components from the alerts and messages using variables, and then we'll play that out. So it makes life easier if you've only got a couple of engineers that overnight tend to do it on call. We can actually automate the process of calling them out and letting them know it's an issue, so we can deal with that situation quickly as well. So lots of different ways to notify people, different ways to escalate it, and also skills-based routing, so we ensure that the message and notification goes to the right individual at the right time. But I think what's coming more and more important over time is this automation. So the ability to automate the process of restarting processes, restarting physical assets, maybe reconfiguring a network to actually isolate a particular switch if we've got a problem that we can actually isolate in that way. And currently the product uses runbook automation, so we can actually use particular scripts that are run for specific infrastructure. As time goes on, there'll be more and more scripting languages that people tend to use for this type of environment, such as Ansible and later on Terraform, to be able to reconfigure infrastructure in that way. If we think about that automation though, so if we're seeing metrics, it may not always be a failure. It might be that we need more capacity. So it could be we need to notify someone that we're actually going to increase provisioning of, say, containers or particular virtual machines for a service that we deliver, whether that's an e-commerce platform or an HR system or whatever we're actually dealing with, from a services perspective. What we can do is automate that process of increasing the capacity based on the metric data that we're receiving, such as the amount of users are logged on, the amount of CPU and memory being consumed by the components of that service. So we can automate that process as well, and again we can actually shrink it back afterwards, automated. Again, alongside that, we can deliver alerts, to let people know what's happening, because it may be, say if we're using an AWS or Azure environment for this, we may want to notify the owner of that cloud platform that we have expanded the infrastructure, and then also we've shrunk it back, so we can actually let them know that's happening, so they've got a good picture of what's happening with the application set during that time. So lots of things we can do from a notification perspective, and we don't need any third-party products to make this happen. It's actually within the OpsRamp platform. So what we'd like to do in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to set out some more automation components, actually demonstrate some of that automation capability, so you can see it live as well. Hopefully today's been of interest. Covered off a little bit about Stream Deck. I think it's a great little product. It's from Elgato. They're not very expensive, and it makes life so much easier if you are starting to do these videos to try and promote your business or your particular products. A great addition to your modern work from home environment. As we're all seem to be building out these environments now, so we can actually do our work and get on with things from home. Anyway, thank you very much for your time. Tomorrow is our Tactile Tech Thursday, so we talk all things about tactile technology and what we're doing. We're going to be talking about a couple of quite interesting things around a new service we're looking to offer, providing security as a service, and this is tied in with some conversations with some potential customers who were initially looking for things like cameras to be able to put security into an area, but maybe more interested in actually having a complete security service alongside it. So it's all fully automated monitoring, and also dealing with any issues with camera outages, managing the infrastructure that connects it. So thank you very much for your time today, and hopefully see you tomorrow.